Today we are going to dig in how the hell this big beautiful bill is going to either help or hurt contractors.
Do you all have to submit bonds on any of these projects that you bid?
That project went from a $1.4 million project to a $2.1 million project. Stories like that are why retainage exists.
This repeal of 179D, energy efficient commercial building deductions. I'm interested on your take here.
The way that it works for me, it is
The affordable housing and low income housing tax credit expansion. Let's unpack this a little bit.
What I'm understanding is that
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
All right, adults, listen, behave. You know, listen, we got a lot of adult stuff. And Terry, I know that's a big word for you, adult.
it's a big, beautiful word.
I mean, today we are going to dig in and like two Neanderthals trying to understand how the hell this big, beautiful bill is going to either help or hurt contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Because, dude, you have been reading this stuff, and there's a lot in this
Oh.
bill. And just trying to figure out, like, how is this going to help? Is it a win for contractors? Is it not? Like, what's the pros and cons here? So much so that we have a special guest today, senior auditor and Supreme Master Drake Cyphers as our producer, and also pulling the strings behind the scene, because I knew Drake, you were excited when this topic came up today.
I was.
Didn't you?
I was.
Hey,
It's big, it's beautiful, and it's a lot to take in all at once. So,
oh, dude, it's and by the way, we don't have any. Well, I think in past episodes, if you know us out there, you 6 listeners, you know we got political persuasions here, but we're not doing this for like clickbait and to get you angry. It's just like I genuinely went down this rabbit hole because I was like, I don't understand how it's going to affect my construction business. So let's like chip at it. And of course, that affects Terry, people that you work with every day and trust that you're passing your students on to. And of course, if you're out there and you don't have a team that can, filter through pages and pages and pages of stuff, it's like, well, why don't we just jump in? So,
and as the resident producer, I have to first say that this is not to be construed as financial advice. Be sure to check with a registered professional in case you actually want the real thing. This is for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah. The only piece of advice we can give you is if you'd like a non-tax refundable donation to buy beer for Terry and I, you can make that to Beers with Contractors Incorporated. And you probably won't even get a receipt for it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like going to the zoo, and you put your quarters in the little thing, and you can get a little bit of food and throw it to the animals. It's the same kind of concept. You can throw us a beer or two.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, man, it's one of those where, like, if you want to donate money to our beer cause and our liver degradation, you knock yourself out there, listeners. We're glad to take beer donations. Unless it's an IPA. I'm not an IPA guy. I can't take it, man.
That's wise
Too heavy.
choice.
Yeah. I think even if I've like nailed a big sponsor from an IPA, it'd be like, I don't know if I could do it, bro. No knock. If you're out there drinking IPA, good for you. But Terry, I think this first one that I started doing research on could even help you, sir.
Oh.
And I got to tell you, like, I wish I would have known this. All of my stuff that I have is already depreciated, but we just need a lot of stuff in construction, right?
We do.
Like, dude, equipment, trucks, power tools, and I'm actually excited about this one. The 100% bonus depreciation for qualified property. Like, especially if you're a high growth company, a lot of people just are looking at the statement of cash flows and just seeing what it's doing there. But on the tax end, especially if you're high growth and making some money, if you want to go and rapid depreciate that in that first year, it could be huge, especially for you high equipment boys out there. Heck, we should have Ben Martin on the program. He's an arborist that has 2 cranes. Have you seen these cranes, Terry? Kirby Smith has them.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, these things are like $1.2 million for a crane.
Yeah, driving down the road, you really don't want to hit those.
Yeah.
You speaking from experience?
No, but close.
I'm just saying, like, for the equipment itself, if you're in an up year and it's like, let's go and get that out of the way, it actually could help tremendously in the coming years. But also, it's like, hey, if we're up against a big tax bill, like, let's go ahead and rapid depreciate XYZ. And if we have to buy it anyway, that's just one of those things. Now, I'm sure there's an issue if you're financing those, which we could probably dig into a little bit here. But that also may settle the debate of, hey, do you lease equipment or do you buy it? I know people like Tommy Mello, owner of A1 Garage Store, is a big fan of leasing. I've never been a big fan of leasing. I like to own the asset, but I will say one of the biggest pain in the asses about it is the depreciation aspect of it.
Well, there's a lot of contractors out there who will buy equipment, and I've seen them. And what you end up seeing at times is if their market or their business transitions into, they either pick up more work or they get away from what they were doing. Now they're sitting here with an asset that they've paid for that's a liability at times, and it just ends up rotting in their yard. So, I mean, the other aspect of that is knowing when to pull that trigger to offload that asset, get it off your books, especially if it's costing you. Will, I would ask you, you're not a CPA. I'm not a CPA. Honestly, I don't know what Drake is, but the idea here is anyone who's getting into business, you better have a good CPA lined up. And that should be one of your first phone calls, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and, it's one of those where also I would even say there's a varying degree, Drake, you know this as well. Some CPAs are, like, good at counting the beans and filing the boxes and all that stuff. But then there's strategic CPAs, and, boy, they are few and far between.
And worth every penny.
Yes, they are. I actually just got a text today from my friend Jamie Robertson. He's like, do you have a good CPA, one that's strategic? And I was like, hell no. But if you find one, let me know because I want to steal them away from you. Hey,
they're like unicorns.
That's where when I look at this stuff, I think of a book. I'm looking up the author. It's called Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright.
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys read this book?
I've read it. That's a great book.
And so, in the first part of that book, Tax-Free Wealth, he talks about, like, if you look at the code book, 90% of it is telling you where they want you to put money.
Right.
And how not to pay taxes. Because the government is trying to move money into a sector of the economy or things like that. So 90% of it is telling you to do that. So when I look through this big, beautiful bill stuff, it's like, all right, what are they trying to do? Right. And what are they trying to get ahead of, which we could fast forward to line item 8, Terry, here in a little bit, but we'll wait because that'll be an interesting one that you and I both are tied into, specifically around energy. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. And if you don't have somebody that understands or can keep up with your depreciation, find a CPA that can do it. Boy, for all of our folks that own a lot of trucks, a lot of tools, that's going to be a big one, especially in your growth mode.
Wait, so are you saying that my lifted truck with LEDs can...
According to this, yes. If you are we're not going to say roofer out there with a jacked up dually and rolling on dubs, as
the big
young
wheels,
kids say.
Big wheels.
The big wheels. Obviously there's pros and cons to each of these. They're going to be looking at unusual purchases that are not revenue producing and things like that. So there's pros and cons to each of these, but this was a very cool one. The expansion of the Section 197 or 179 limits. And I had to dig into this one a little bit more, and I was pumped. Now, there's positives and negatives to it, obviously. But, this is essentially expanding on a lot of what is tax deductible in a business that changes the amount the business can expense or raise in the threshold deduction being phased out. So, fancy way of saying a lot of the stuff that we pay for every day in the business is starting to immediately help cash flow.
Yep.
So contractors that can fully expense equipment, those are your excavators, your trucks, your pumps, your software. Software, that's a big one. And I want to be clear, I own a software company, but under Section 179, including off-the-shelf software. Contractors investing in job costing, time tracking, project management softwares can fully expense these in full. So we have all invested in things like Procore, Salesforce, Builder Trends. Like, these are massive ERP programs to operate our construction companies, and they cost a massive amount of money. And while they were an expense before, but to be able to fully expense those in full over the course of time, if you are having to build some of these out 3 years in advance, because a lot of these you have to pay in advance to build them out. And you may not see the result of that for 2 years, especially for some of these large ERP systems. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and getting back to like thinking about the intent, there are tons of contractors, manufacturing companies, whatever industry you want to say, and they've just been putting this stuff off, putting this stuff off, putting this stuff off. Well, guys, AI is coming, and you're going to want to start to digitally transform before it hits you and your competitor uses it and uses it to just completely run circles around you. So now they're intentionally going, hey, we got to catch up on the digital side. Let's get something in there so that they get taxed less for actually doing the thing that we need them to do, which is to upgrade. Because I guarantee you that China is doing all of this type of stuff.
Well, and what I liked about this, and Terry, I mean, you get to work with contractors of all sizes. And I mean, you know, I think of our friends at like AC Owens, like they're not like a massive Manhattan or J Dunn. You know, they're doing everything from large custom builds to quick service restaurants, all sorts of stuff. So this actually benefits some of the smaller guys because there's a phase out zone for larger contractors. You know, it starts to phase out dollar for dollar for the big dogs, which could normally use that as a competitive edge. But here, like for the small to mid-sized guys, like this keeps them competitive in that regard. So I kind of like that. And
and it's hard when you're in that, you're a smaller contractor doing whatever that threshold is, right? You look at some of these large national contractors and you're having to compete for jobs, and any advantage that you can give them is really helping. And I still call them small businesses. You know, they're privately owned. You want to see them succeed.
Yeah. Well, and you don't have to disclose any names, but, you know, we've talked to Martin Holland on this program. He cites studies that say the average profit, net operating profit in a construction company is a little under 7%. Do some of your, you know, trusted industry partners, do they disclose that or give you a window of like what their predictive like net profit margin is? I know in home services, it's like, man, if you got to make 10 or above, but in commercial, it's different.
Yeah. Commercial, they're going to be lower, and they'll tell me what they're bidding jobs at. Now, what they're bidding a job at and then what their end of the year profit margin is going to be are going to differ, because you have so many different variables that come in during the course of the project. If you have change orders that help incentivize or add to that line, or something that comes out ahead. But yeah, no, they're going to be under 7% on most projects. You know, residential is going to be better, but you're also dealing with a much smaller project at that point in time.
Yeah. Well, one interesting thing about this, negative or risk factors, you know, if contractors expense too much in 1 year, this is where back to our good CPA, taxable income may show artificially low or even negative, only to spike in years later, especially for you LLC folks out there. You need to Google up what is negative basis on your LLC taxes and things like that. Ask me how I know, because I've got hit with that too.
And the other thing about that too is if you are trying to sell.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be,
Good
if you're
point.
trying to sell, that's a big thing where it's like, why did 2025 you showed, you know, $3 profit, and every other year you've been at a few million? Right. And now you have a lot of splaining to do, as Ricky Ricardo would say.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear to all you 6 of you out there listening, you know, the more research we keep going down this is most of these come with a little note like your audit risk will go up. There's some other ones in here that more like, yeah, you need to think about a different industry, but we'll get down to those here in a little bit.
So does this mean we're going to see a whole lot of contractors driving around in new branded trucks here in a little bit?
Fully depreciated ones, yes. Hey, Terry, did you get a new truck? I'm just kidding. Man, yeah, when you see somebody all of a sudden having a Cybertruck fleet or something like that, it's like, oh, yeah, he was really trying to get that in the window. But it makes me wonder, like, let's take a step back from just these first two we've talked about. I mean, I'm wondering how much of this is going to reflect on the manufacturing and distribution side that we hope has a positive impact, or it could have a negative impact on, say, for example, the contractor. Because, man, we just keep getting hit left and right. And I know the vendors are not solely responsible here. There's a supply chain issue, right? But shit, the bill comes due somewhere, and obviously it all comes down to the customer. But, man, there's a lot of in between here that could affect even manufacturing, distribution, hell, agriculture, and growing our trees for lumber, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at this, let's see here. Revenue recognition and percentage of completion. I started reading this, and I was thinking about this a lot, Terry. My cash cycle is pretty fast in home services. Man, we start a project, and we try to end it within a few weeks, right? Some are done in the same day. But like a lot of these projects, man, they can go on for years.
Right.
What's the longest project you've ever been a part of, Terry?
Oh, longest one I think was 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. And the other aspect of it is, I love you home service guys, because you're looking at a project, right? And so when you get out there, you get the work done, you submit that bill, and you might be paid, right? And you can correct me, within 30 days from start to finish, right? You look at these commercial contractors, they're holding on to so much cost for 30, 60, 90 days at time. And they're having to pay their subs. They're having to pay their material vendors. They have to pay their people. Oh, the ability to not have enough money in the bank to go out and do some of these jobs and be able to float that note for a while, or they're turning around, borrowing money and paying interest on it. There's a cost to doing business that a lot of contractors don't quite understand. And that's why you see so many more residential contractors, because they can hold on to that cost for 30, 60, 90 days because it's so much smaller than these large commercial contractors are.
Yeah, and I hate it when contractors have to become the bank, for anybody, to be clear. But to define this, like this revenue recognition and the percentage of completion changes to the big, beautiful bill. Like, to be clear, for those contractors that have very long cash cycles, you can start to defer revenue recognition, at least till later stages of completion, which I think that's good. I mean, hey, we've got to pay our vendors, we pay our people, things like that. But where I get a little worried about this part of the bill is like the audit triggers, because it all comes down to timing on just like when the money arrives versus not, but also more importantly, like the balance sheets. What is it doing to the balance sheets for the owners? Drake, you mentioned this before about people that want to sell, but
right
on these larger ones with more complex projects, obviously this is going to help reduce the taxable income in the early years, but it also could trigger a local state tax issue that may not be subject to that level. So when I hear about the revenue recognition, when it weighs against percentage of completion, I'm like, dude, this is a game changer for bigger companies that have longer projects to keep better cash flow. But man, you may want to take that cash flow and have a few other bean counters in the office, because man, the timing of those entries are going to be important. Also, like, let me see here. Contractors can be more favorable tax timing to be able to reinvest and offer sharper bids. By the way, in your programs, Terry, do you guys go through like bid reviews and blueprint reading and like how to create a bid from just these massive RFPs?
Yeah, that is such a huge aspect of what our graduates end up doing, that we take them through a full understanding of quantity takeoff, putting together a bid. We do, we're wrapping it all up in this concept of pre-construction. And, the students are coming out with a lot more knowledge, versatility, and they're coming out using the software that these industry partners are using day to day.
Yeah. And what are the most commonly used industry partner softwares that they're using on that?
Well, you talked about Procore. Procore is so large in our industry
Dude, their
right now.
program is getting crazy.
Uh-huh.
Like, just how robust it is.
Now, you will see some commercial contractors shy away from them when it comes to the accounting side because there's a cost tied to it, right? So you'll see someone using a Procore system for submittals and communications and document tracking. But what you will also see is that whenever they tie a financial aspect into it, their cost per project is going to go up because it's related to that specific dollar amount. And so you're going to see contractors sadly having to use two softwares trying to find the best purchase value or price. The other aspect, I'm dealing with it with now, kids are using a product called Bluebeam, and it gives them the ability to review plan sets, do quantity takeoff, and they're moving through it because everything's gone digital. And it's a huge question that we're dealing with now is these kids are working so fast in a digital format with plan sets, but they're tied into whatever they're seeing directly on their screen. For someone who's grown up with paper plans, we can kind of tie this part of the project into everything because you can step back and look at it all at once. And so we're dealing with those issues on how to get the young people to say, hey, maybe you should look at a paper set and see how it can all tie together. Back in my day,
these guys, I picture these kids just flying through takeoffs, and I'm sitting over there counting my toes and fingers on trying to figure out how many studs are in a freaking wall.
Well, you want to know the funniest thing? Well, is I gave an assignment in class this week, right? And I had groups of students, and they were just doing this real quick quantity takeoff, right? Just basic calculations. And I had a couple kids who are putting it in Excel, in tables, creating formulas, and it's slowing them down because it is literally like a handful of calculations. And I'm like, it was all timed. I'm like, you don't need to do that. You can just use a calculator or pencil and paper. So,
well, that's funny.
What are those?
Stop
I
it,
know,
Drake.
right? Like, an Apple Pencil works on
Yeah.
paper. It's funny to think of you looking at kids like, oh, kids, speed it up. It's just Excel, dude. We're like, still using Excel, bro. But hey, this is interesting because I know a lot of your types and people like have to deal with this, and I've had to deal with it too. But one of the issues that's coming out of this percentage of completion changes with a big, beautiful bill is bond and surety concerns. Switching some of these methods can make a contractor look a little bit less stable or profitable depending on how they're offsetting these, especially for those firms that have to secure bonds for work and how those are offset. But the PCM financials, because they show work in progress and earned revenue over time. Well, it's like, is it earned revenue or is this essentially a glorified accounts receivable list just growing and growing and growing? And by the time when they get to our project, there's no cash in that business left. So that's something that I found surprising because we don't have to deal with a lot of bonds, but I know a lot of companies that do. So,
Will, that was going to be one of my questions. Do you all have to submit bonds on any of these projects that you bid?
Ladies, running your small business can be demanding. You got suppliers you got to work with. You're managing crews. Hell, you're chasing sales. It's a lot to take in. Listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to stop working in it and you got to start working on it. So that's where my friends at Foundation Rescue Supply come in. You're not just getting foundation repair products and waterproofing products and air quality control products. With their nationwide distribution, you're getting a partner who knows how to help you scale. And that's why I use them. The Foundation Rescue Supply team has industry knowledge that'll help make your life easier. You get the tools, the trainings, the systems that you need to move the needle. You want your sales team to close more leads? Done, because they have the proven process for that. You need your crews to work smarter, not harder? Done. Their installation training will get you out there and rocking and rolling in the field. With Foundation Rescue Supply, you're not just buying materials here, you're buying a better business system that they have helped create. And you sell more, you install more, and you grow your team. So the bottom line is this: you get best industry pricing, you get field productivity on track, and you get more revenue out of everybody on your team. So this is your chance to step up, scale up, and thrive. If you are ready to make that happen, head to foundationrescuesupply.com, check out their catalog, and speak to my friends, their team, how you can take beyond the products with your company with Foundation Rescue Supply.
Yeah, we submit bonds, especially for our commercial municipal projects, but obviously like even larger residential, no. You know, it depends on the jurisdiction. And when I say jurisdiction, township, county, heck, tribe, or whatever the case is. Now, out east, when I was out there, yeah, it was very common working for school systems.
Yeah.
Actually, that's common even here.
Right. Municipalities or public works.
Yeah. Now, my type of work is not like building the frickin' school. It's typically repairing a portion of it. So my bonds are typically pretty less. I mean, it's pretty affordable for me. But some of these other bonds, including, gosh, forgive me, Terry, we were talking about this before about progress payments is, gosh, what are they called? Retainage. Like the retainage on these projects are nuts. Like, wait a minute, you're going to hold 10% of my profits or even cash until the completion of the project. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode just on the history of retainage and where they came from and why. And if somebody's out there that knows like why this is something that is still enforced to today, just please educate me on it through the comments, because I'm just like, man, it takes so much control over the cash. Back to that whole, as a contractor, we're practically a bank. You're letting somebody hold on to cash for 2 years and you're still not getting any interest earned. Granted, yeah, you can build it into your bid, but you're having to do that with 3 other competitors trying to eat your lunch. This is crazy. It's crazy.
Well, so I was on the real estate developer side.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, educate me. I heard the heavy breathing when I was disclosing that.
Sorry,
I was like, is that Terry? No, that's Drake.
Nope, that was me thinking, well, let me tell you about the worst year and a half of my life.
No, educate me.
So we were building an RV park, right? I wasn't the developer. I just was like the developer's right-hand guy. We had our dirt and utilities contractor who I had to take over for the GC who was watching them because it was up in Grand Lake, Monkey Island RV Park. And yeah. So
I know that area.
Yeah. So they decided instead of using sand to bury all your utilities like you would normally in rocky soil, they decided to just use all the topsoil from all 9.5 acres. Then they started double charging us for the equipment that they were using. And so I had to do a full-blown audit. Like I had to move to Monkey Island just to do an audit to figure out like what the actual damages were.
That's crazy.
That, sir, is why retainage. Because we're talking that project went from a $1.4 million project to a $2.1 million project strictly because of what that contractor did.
Yeah.
And so there was no retainage that could rescue that project from the money pit that it ended up being. So stories like that are why retainage exists.
And Will, you got to understand retainage, bonds, all of this is designed to protect the owner, right? And it really comes in, especially on public works projects where you're doing the good, you're protecting the people, right? So,
yeah. Well, and I know you can build it into the bid. I understand the bond side, the retainage side. Obviously, I want to be very clear on jobs where I have retainage. I'm in the foundation business, so I'm on the very beginning part of the frickin' project. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not seeing any of that retainage to the very end, and I hope everybody else gets it right. Because if everybody else screws it up, there goes my retainage. But hey, I am interested though. Number 4, Terry, your take on this. You are a very hands-on person. Let's just say that you drive a truck You wear boots most of the time. You hunt. You got farm animals. But you're a green-leaning guy, man. You believe in energy conservation, and you have Teslas.
Yep.
So this repeal of 179D, energy-efficient commercial building deductions, I'm interested on your take here, sir, because obviously there's positives and negatives. Like, what do you think about this?
So, I mean, again, literally had this conversation with my class last week, right? So, asked a classroom full of young, bright, intelligent individuals, how many of these young people moving into construction care about sustainability, energy efficiency? And you know how many hands shot up? Like, yes, we really care. None.
Oh,
Like,
really?
none
That
of them
surprised
care.
me. I thought you were going to say the opposite.
No
shit,
none
really?
of them care. None of them care, right?
Oh,
Like, if they're looking at their career pathway, they are not going to specialize in energy efficiency, right? This generation doesn't care. I framed the question there. All right, how many of you care about money? And everyone's hand shoots up, right? Everyone cares about money. You look at sustainability, energy efficiency, I look at it as I'm saving money at the end of the day, right? The way that it works for me, it is a upfront investment that is going to pay dividends over the life of that house, piece of equipment, what have you. And I think a lot of what we do is we don't market it correctly. You know, if you put an energy efficient doors, windows, upgraded insulation, mechanical system into any of your residential or commercial product, you can see those benefits over the life of owning that property. And, you know, for myself, my wife, we're going to own the property for 20 plus years. You know, the average homeowner probably stays in a house for 6 years. And I think if the payback's on year seven, they're never going to see it. So, you know, I look at the appeal of the energy efficient, like them taking away the deductions or the incentives for energy efficient upgrades. I mean, in general, the consumer base out there is never going to make choices based off the data, right? They're going to make their choice based off what they want and what they feel. And a lot of times they're not as educated about the subject as they should be when making these choices. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, you can't artificially stimulate or support a market either. So,
well, it's interesting because I feel like this could be a little bit of a workaround because, you know, I believe in energy efficiency and things like that. We need to progress that way. I think we've been doing it naturally anyway. Remember, hell, Terry, when you couldn't, actually, you probably remember when a 13-SEER like air conditioning unit was top of the line. Can you even get a 13-SEER air conditioning unit anymore? Like,
you got to know someone.
yeah, it probably was robbed off another building, right? So, but like what this is doing is like, and I'm going to be clear as a case study, like I think of Stitt Remodeling in Northwest Arkansas, like they specialize in solar and inverters and they do remodeling. They've never been about like this wave of up and down of tax credits. They've been like, hey, this is what we do. If this is valuable to you, kind of like you and your wife, Carrie, like we can add this, right? But man, like there's been some home and garden shows I've been to, and you can tell like the wolves are out. There's blood in the water, right? Like these solar guys are like ruthless, like knocking on my door and going crazy. And I feel like, you know, this threshold, and to be clear with this exact push and the bill, like when we start getting into what is it, June 30th, 2026, that's it, done. No new projects after June 30th, 2026 will qualify. Energy-related projects, like the write-off's gone. Now, also the builders owners lose those tax credits, which I'm curious is like, well, if they need a new air conditioner, could those be written off in the previous tax codes that we talked about in equipment and advancing all sorts of things, which I guess if you have a good CPA, you could file anything away. But you know, contractors lose those abilities. There's just so many things that I think we're going to see this massive surge of you're going to lose a tax credit. You're going to lose a tax credit.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The contractor's losing it too. And then like, where does the business, meaning the gross domestic product or the money, where's those transactions flow to next? Like where's everybody gonna migrate to? There's new jobs out there, there's new installers, there's new manufacturers. So that's what's interesting, and which is studies have shown these 2026 headwinds. We're going to start to see the effects on this in the energy side in 2026, late end from the big beautiful bill specifically around energy.
But also the converse of that is if more people are pushing that up right now, because we have such a permits are down, certain construction is down just in general.
Yeah.
And so this would lead to a compressing of some of those jobs. And you kind of mentioned it, but it would lead to people trying to maybe bring those jobs up sooner and happen faster, which, given the way that consumers are pretty tired, a lot of disposable income is down, spending is down, this would get more money into the average worker who is in that industry faster. And out of, so like I'm a developer, I wanted to do this project. I likely have more disposable income than the worker who's doing the work, right? So if I'm pulling that back, it would inflate. You would have more work in the short term, which would help the economy short term, because I think some of this has to do with the fact that there's an element of trying to prevent a recession because of all the job revisions that we've had recent, going back to 2024. So I think some of it for the frontline worker means that the next couple of years could be decent. So that is a positive.
Well, and to be clear, I think like trades in general, man, come on. The next few years are going to be awesome.
Go.
Dude, like, come on, the water's fine. I mean, it's just a matter of like, well, hold on. If you're selling solar at a home and garden show, that may not be a good career path, controversial topic, but sorry if I got any guys that sell solar at home and garden shows here listening. But if you do comment, I'd be pumped to add you to our 6 other listeners. Hey,
No, what's interesting is you talk about the trades, well, and what we're seeing in education, and I think we all see day to day, right? You have so many people retiring from the trades, right? That, like, last number I heard is for every 5 that step out, you have 1 that actually takes their place, right? So you have a deficit there. You also have a much lower entry or cost to entry, right? So you go through a career tech, you go through a union, you go through a trade school, right? To get into one of these licensed trade pathways, and you have a great career. And then the other aspect is AI is not going to take away their jobs, right? These are people going out and they're fixing things that were screwed up from the beginning, right? AI is not going to be able to do that. So, you go be an electrician, plumber, HVAC tech, you go into any of these trade pathways, you're making a good, solid choice for the next 20, 30 years, probably.
Well, I'm going to do a side quest here, Terry, but I want to get down to, I'm trying to find it right now. Because we've talked a lot about energy stuff, your energy leaning, but we talked about it before the show that we need to talk about. I can't seem to find it in the show notes, but let's just talk about union labor real quick. So if you want to check this out, go to Meta or Instagram. I've got ads out for performance.io. And I somehow got a bunch of comments from a bunch of union people about performance pay. And I'm like, hey, buddy, if it's not for you, no big deal. We work with the unions in our construction camp for kids. That was a positive response. Dude, people came out of the woodwork and I don't know what it is, but some of the unions have created this cult called it reality distortion field about what the union is and what it isn't. And I was just blown away. I'm like, hey guys, I'm just trying to help people. Well, are there landscaping unions? I don't know of any of them. Are there pooper scooper pickup unions? No, but they're on my platform. Damn you pooper scoopers. Why aren't you on a union? And I'm like, holy fuck, bro. There's some crazy, it's like a football team obsession.
Wait, let's clarify. No, let's clarify, because I want to understand what actually happened. So they were on there complaining because your performance pay software would help contractors make more money?
Well, yeah, and that's yeah, that was it. And some of the
Dear
comments
God,
are
how
like,
could you?
I feel bad for you people. Should have joined the union. And I'm like, dude, like, and by the way, I have employees that work for my company that came from like the carpenters union. They are awesome. They came with great training. They're good people, but they had their reasons for leaving. But man, dude, it created like this back and forth. And I told my marketing person, she goes, what do you want me to do with these comments? And I'm like, just let them go. Like, I don't need that negativity in my life. And dude, it just, and to be clear, if you're listening to this, go comment on it because that negative engagement just helps me. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. Side quest in the unions. I know we
No.
work with them, Terry, and some of them are fantastic. I mean, they are contributing to our camp and all sorts of stuff, but woo.
No, I mean, you have to understand what the unions are capable of doing is having a set way of developing and training young people that come into them, and they give them a lot of stability. You know, unions are great for the employee or the worker. And if you get up into the management side or the owner side, maybe there's some less than stellar aspects that they have to deal with, right? Costs are going to be higher. The unions that we see here in the central part of the United States are significantly less than what you're going to see on the West Coast and East Coast of the United States.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, again, the nice thing about the camp, we're educating and showing young people career pathways into construction. And it doesn't matter if you go to a trade school, a 2-year, a 4-year, or a union program. Just get into construction because it is a great,
Yeah, and that's what's cool. Like, our friend Curtis at the Plumbers Pipe Fitters Union, has been like that. Like, hey, man, if you come here, you learn from us for a year, you don't like it, at least you left with a skill, right? And I love that about Curtis, man. He is awesome. And like others, but then there's this other side. It's like, come to the dock side, Luke. And it's like, all right, dude, like chill down with the union breath. All right. Like we're all just trying to learn a skill. So, all right, back to reality, back to our regular scheduled programming. Hey, I'm interested. You brought this up. I found it. Shifts in clean energy renewable green credits to homeowners. So they are phasing it out, bro. And it's like, solar, wind, EV charging, home electrification, like all of these, they're gone. They are sunsetting. And you brought up an interesting point because I was like, I wonder if that's going to really affect some of these industries. And you were like, well, you told me, you were like, well, you led with the question, do you think that's going to change behavior in people buying like an electric vehicle? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But then you dug deeper. So let's dig deeper, Terry, because I didn't think about the electricians and manufacturing and all that stuff that are going to be making and installing those. They diverted everything to the next shiny object.
Right. Well, you think about it, right? So you go buy an electric vehicle, right? You're the average homeowner, and you use that, what was it, $7,500 rebate to go offset the cost, right? And let's be honest, like I have an electric vehicle. It is great for commuting. It is wonderful on fuel efficiency, but that's because I'm also charging at the house now, and I'm charging
off the solar that you put in.
Right. And so, for me and my setup and my family, it works, right? Even if you were buying it at the house, you're going to
Hold on, let me rewind, Terry. So you are an unlicensed electrician that wired up your, I'm just kidding.
Outside of the municipality, which did not require the permit.
There's our union guys chiming in. Here we go.
No, but so you look at it, right? For the setup and the situation we were in, it can't be beat, right? And the analogy I always say, right? I can't own an oil well and I can't own a refinery, but I can own a solar panel, right? And so you really want to be self-sufficient, right? And you really want to save that money. Look at that. But yeah, like how many of these homeowners that are buying electric vehicles are not going to be calling an electrician to install that home charger? right? How many of these jobs are not going to be created? Now, again, we don't know what the market's going to do. They might lower the price of EVs by $7,500 as soon as it goes away.
Yeah, I see that also. Like, I kind of have to back up from the individualistic level. Like, I'm a homeowner. This is what I feel, yada, yada. What does my neighbor think? But if I'm running a manufacturing facility and I see that 100,000 units were eventually going to be done away with because, well, we now have that market sector going away, I'm naturally going to pivot my manufacturing facility into a different product that may or may not be, EV chargers or inverters, things like that. So it's interesting how the trickle effect will probably move from people maybe not purchasing as much to more of the manufacturing, which is just going to increase costs. And hell, let's just go and throw this ringer, unpopular opinion. Like, if these parts are coming from overseas, they're going to have a tariff attached to them anyway. So we're going to see a cost increase anyway. So, I mean, yeah, we got raw goods coming from the U.S., but if we keep getting the tariffs on these, we're just going to see the indirect increase trickle down to the front line anyway. And an electrician's going to say, well, I don't really install many of these inverters or these chargers anyway, but now that I got an order, I'm going to charge 20% more because I'm not just set up to put these in all day, every day. It just landed on my plate randomly every 2 weeks. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out. And, if you need a charger for your house and you have an EV, contact Terry Kleinfelter, a legal electrician incorporated. And it sounds like he could probably cut you a deal, he'd probably barter for a cow or something like that. So
Maybe a 12-pack.
yeah, that's right.
Now, what was interesting is navigating the whole interconnection when it comes to your utility supplier, because ours at least lists us as generating facility. So, we have to go through all this paperwork about how large of a system we could have based on how much usage we have. And, they send someone out to inspect it. And like, the guy's looking at it, he's like, it looks really good. I'm like, yes. Did you do it yourself? Yes. It's like, I love living out in rural Oklahoma. Ain't no law around here, law dog.
Well, so this next one, I got to admit, I have not dug into
Ain't
this.
done digging?
But I'm interested in it. It's something that speaks to me. It's the Affordable Housing and Low-Income Housing Tax Credit expansion. And let's unpack this a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts, both Drake and Terry. So the bill expands allocation for affordable housing tax credits, making more subsidized multifamily developments projects viable. To us contractors, we'll see increased opportunity in subsidized housing if you specialize in that space. What I hear there is I'm worried a little bit about all commerce is good when right, but I'm curious about these house flippers, wholesalers jumping into some of these multi-level or multifamily homes, trying to dive into that. But then again, there's investor side risks there, which means that this market's probably going to contract and get a little bit tighter in competition. But let me see here. Drake, thank you for your good little research notes. This is good.
I tried.
So, yeah, reduction of private activity bond, financing threshold reducing from 50% to 25% of land plus building. What does this mean, Drake? What did you find here?
Yeah, so we'll see if I can stumble through an explanation. But what I'm understanding is that it looks like you have to get a bond on it. And the previous threshold, you were required to put up 50% of the land plus building cost for specific low-income housing tax credits. And so this lowers that to 25%. And so because typically low-income housing, you do that differently than your traditional housing. The government's going to make you throw up some money just to make sure that you aren't one of those crazy flippers. So that has been my understanding of it. And so the idea, not so much here, because Oklahoma City housing market, we have had a lot of multifamily go up recently.
Yeah.
A lot of multifamily.
Yeah, which is common in other markets. Like there's parts of Oklahoma City starting to look a lot like Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC when we lived there, more congested populated areas. And it's like, oh, yeah, it looks like that part of the country, just like it.
Yeah.
So,
But there are other places where the shortages are significantly more. There's a lot more. They have a lot more need than maybe we do here in Oklahoma.
well, and this is interesting. And sorry, I had to look up what qualifies for, low income housing tax credit, but somebody posted something the other day and I had to fact check it. I like Berkshire Hathaway. I like Warren Buffett, but they just doubled down in some real estate investments for home builders, which shows that like, hey, there's money moving in that area. These specific home builders like Lennar and some other ones are some of their investment portfolio, but this is not low income housing builders, to be clear. So that shows that number one, there's money flowing into that area. We have people that make more people, and then they move to areas that have more people, and then we all of a sudden have the fucking houses. And so I'm looking at this like large apartment buildings, duplexes, single family homes, and townhomes qualify. And that has to be weighed against a area median income test. So 20% of units at 50% AMI, the 40 to 60 test, 40% of units at 60 AMI. These are things that qualify. And sorry if that's a lot of acronyms, folks.
So, Will, like you look at, and this is something I know you've seen, I've seen, and I know everyone who's looking at buying their first home has seen, right? So you look at the average home value here in the state of Oklahoma, and it is just over $250,000, right?
Right?
And
that's so bad. To our listeners, which I know you're out there in Ohio, I know you're laughing right now. And Charlotte, Brandon Powell, I know you're listening.
well, but the first house that I bought here in the state of Oklahoma was significantly under $250,000, right? So if you're a young person coming up in Oklahoma trying to buy a house, right? And that's what the average is, you have to imagine it's going to take them a minute. Now, even at some of the lower, low income or more affordable housing, right? There is just not enough stock right now because people, like the price of everything is just going sky high, it seems like.
Yeah, well, and that's what's interesting about, like, let's just talk about first purchase, young individuals out there, because I know we have a younger demographic of listeners here. Like, my son asked me about this earlier. He's like, listen, I want to, first thing I move into, I want to own. And I'm like, well, dude, it doesn't have to be a house. Like, it could be a condo or a townhome. That's what we were talking about. Like, townhome is a property. It's an appreciating property. And I'll never forget this. And I don't know if you agree with this, Drake or Terry. Like, I owned some condos in a past life in Virginia, and somebody said, listen, just make sure that the roof is all the same roof line. These were condos, by the way. Sorry. And he's like, make sure they're all the one roof line because, man, if the whole roof, one section of the roof gets done, you got to spread that across all the people under the roof. If the townhome has separate roof lines, you get to own your little quadrant of roof line. And it's all on you, bro. And I don't know if the same is here. Heck, maybe we have Daniel from Alpha Pro back on to answer this question. But it's like, dude, get into a condo. It's going to be appreciating asset. Get into a townhome. You don't have to get into something that's got a yard with all the maintenance or anything. Now, granted, my son bought at age 20 his own home. And love you, bro. I love you, buddy, if you're listening. But it's like it can be done. And I love the fact of seeing this tax credit available. Because, man, we got to have more housing. And, of course, that leads to more maintenance. That leads to more building, just more property purchases, all that good stuff. So let's see here. Scrolling down, because if we haven't lost anybody yet, we might as well end on a show note. Oh, listen, I'm looking here, Drake. You have a section in your questions here, Devil's Advocate. Do I want to dive into this? By the way, to all you folks, we commonly have a Google Doc that we text back and forth. Sometimes it's very inappropriate, Terry, what is typed on that Google Doc. And you have no clue that it's happening in the background. But it's a way for us to communicate with one another. But because we don't have a guest, it's kind of fun. So devil's advocate. Yeah, some contractors, reading through some of this even more so today before the show, it makes me a little hesitant to take some of these deductions too quickly without comparing it to where I would end up otherwise. Others say new reporting thresholds don't really matter and there's more impact to these than people realize. It's funny. We've heard this about PPP and EIDL and now ERC. Terry, you probably don't know much about this. The PPP, well, you just went PPP because you had too many beers. You had to take a break during the podcast. But so yeah, the Paycheck Protection Program during COVID.
Will, wasn't that McLaren financing by the government?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. They well, I got to tell
Everybody
you,
got new
like,
McLarens?
yeah. Dude, I got to tell you, some of these deductions give me the same PPP, EIDL vibes, including ERC tax credits vibes. So,
Just too good to be true.
well, it's good, but there's a cost. Everything comes at a cost. So, and I won't disclose too much information here, but to summarize all this, I think there's a lot of viable information. I would not suggest anybody here, and no, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a CPA, but don't go for some company that's going to dig around for you and take a percentage of whatever you get back.
No.
We saw a ton of that with the ERC stuff. So the Paycheck Protection Program allowed us to get proceeds from the government to protect the paychecks of our employees. We used it. We had employees that literally couldn't leave home because daycares were closed.
Yep.
And they needed a freaking paycheck. So we didn't hoard that stuff. It went to the employees. And the government got the taxes back on the employment taxes. So then there was EIDL, essentially the SBA loan program that helped us cover expenses due to loss of business during COVID, some of which were rapid inflation and other problems that caused issues in our business. And then there was the employee retention tax credit. And boy, this was where it got really rough. When the employee retention tax credit came on, it was a program to help the government go back and give tax credits for when you retained employees when you otherwise couldn't afford to do so, and some various other different degrees. And there were a lot of predatory companies that were like, hey, we can get you X amount of dollars in the ERTC for like what you did during COVID. And by the way, we'll take 10%. So we were approached by 5 or 6 companies within a month. And after digging around, we actually called the IRS and asked them, and they were like, yeah, there's a lot of those that are predatory companies. 3 businesses in the last 2 weeks that I've talked to have just gotten letters about audits that have accepted the employee retention tax credits, 2 of which used the services of these companies, which took a percentage of the proceeds, many of which because many of them are hitting this year. And when I read some of these deductions, honestly, it comes down to a few things, and I'll just summarize it. Like, run a good business, run a profitable business, do it without any tax deductions, service homeowners good, like, and then you can stretch these to help make your business better. And, you know, if you're worried about doing something shady, like, just have a good CPA and then document everything. We have been audited 3 times in my business life, and you know what? The one that we ended up having to pay money to, honestly, we were in the wrong. We weren't filing a certain unique use tax with the state, but every other one we were squeaky clean. So keep good books and all that good stuff. So, boy, we could go down the rabbit hole, and of course, more and more is going to develop, isn't it, fellas?
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, Drake, I'm glad you got a chance to geek out on this episode. And Terry, I'm glad to know that you illegally hooked up all of your electrical stuff to your house.
Yep.
And if you sell fire extinguishers and you are near the Guthrie, Oklahoma metropolis, please let us know and mail us maybe a complimentary fire extinguisher, ABC rated fire extinguisher, to Terry Kleinfelter, illegalelectricianincorporated.com. Okay, so to you guys out there, appreciate you. We'll see you next week on another episode of Beers with Contractors. Peace.
See ya.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.